Hello and welcome to Savor the Southwest. Today I'm looking at how to cook this unusual squash called an opo squash, also called a long squash, and it's grown around the world in warm climates, so it has about as many names as you can't shake a stick at. There's so many different names. It's popular in a lot of Asian cooking, including Vietnamese cooking. They make a soup out of it. And it's also popular in Mexican cooking. And what it really is an immature calabash or bottle gourd. And you can see there's the stem. And it looks, it's green. And it's got these white specklings on it. And you want to get it before it's too far gone and starts getting too hard. You also want to get it before it's sat around in your counter for a long time. And this one feels fairly lightweight, especially as, yes, it's smaller, but this has a density to it, and this feels really lightweight. So I bet this might be a little too ripe. It sat on the counter too long before I made this video. Shame on me. So, when confronted with new vegetables to use, I, as usual, went to my cookbooks. I know a lot of people go online and start searching there, but I went to my cookbooks and I found in one of my older cookbooks called Savoring Mexico a recipe where it said they peel the squash and then they boil it and then they cook it together with the brown sugar, basically, and cinnamon. And I thought, ooh, that's interesting. And then I went to one of my Asian cookbooks and they said, oh, you peel it and you boil it and you mix in some chili and some turmeric and some chili and all sorts, curry and all sorts of things. And so in the two cultures, there are two very different ways of preparing this squash. One makes it into a sweet dish, and one makes it into a spicy dish. And it's like, wow, okay, so I could do either of these. I don't know if you noticed, the thing that was in common about both of these is they said peel it and then cook it and then, spice it up. So I was like, well, why do I have to peel it? Because if you have a butternut squash, which has a similar hard rind to it, you simply cut it in half and steam it and scoop out the inside. So I like to experiment with my food. That's what I did with my opo. I cut it in half and I steamed it, and it kind of curled up. It didn't stay, the butternut will stay stiff. And here's the other thing. It's very hard to scoop that flesh out. It doesn't want to come. Here, let's move our squish. Does not want to come. So, with the other half of the squash, I did steam it. And it's very plain flavored. Very, well, it's good. You could say it's bland, but this means it provides a palate for whatever spices you're going to add to it. It's going to make it a really yummy dish. So, which way do I want to go? Do I want to go sweet, some brown sugar or some honey? Or do I want to go spicy? Well, how do I deal with my opo? I'm going to have to cut it in half. And you do want to be very careful cutting hard-shelled squash in half, especially because they're round and roly-poly, and if your knife is not sharp, it's more likely to slip, and then you can get hurt. So my knives are sharp, always. Oh, I did wash the outside of the skin of my squash because I'm going to be puncturing this with a knife. And I might, if the outside was even dusty, I could introduce bacteria or contaminants into my food. So, and you see this wooden counter, it's cleaned before every use. Mostly because we have cats that trying to keep them off the counter is a lost cause. So we just keep the cleaner right there. Cedar wood and sage from Trader Joe's. Not a sponsor yet, but you can clean it with, you know, whatever you choose. We do clean this before we use it. So we clean our food before we cook with it. And then, do you see how I started in the middle and I'm working out to the side? And it's a hard-shelled squash. Oh, wait, I forgot to tell you. You're supposed to, I did tell you, you're supposed to peel it first. Well, I found it's a lot easier, believe it or not, to cut it before you peel it. Because then you can set it down and peel it. But you can see that it's kind of a spongy interior, and there isn't a lot of flesh here. This one is on the borderline of being too far gone, especially because the seeds are no longer white, they're turning brown. That's a sign that this should have been handled a little bit sooner. Now, once we got that, we got to get out that spongy, seedy part, and you can just use a spoon. This is an older spoon, and it's actually kind of worn and sharp on the edges. Any big spoon will do, you know. I also have here my pumpkin tool. We bought years ago at pumpkin carving season in Halloween, and it's very handy, but it's a little too big for this use. So I'm going to use it when I do my pumpkins, but just kind of clean this out. Great for the compost heap. And peel it. And how do you peel it? I want to show you this. I should have had this. Vegetable peeler. Just peels right out. And wow. The fact of the matter is, if it doesn't peel right out, it's a sign that it's also too ripe. So you can do this with your spaghetti squash as well, or excuse me, your butternut squash as well. This is, again, it's been washed. You peel this and then you cut it up and put it in the jar for canning. And I'm going to do the same for my opos. I'm going to peel them up, set them in the jar, and get them ready for canning. So opos, yes, you can peel them and cut them up. And you can see we do have a microwave. We could cut them and simply put them in a microwave, a little bit of water, put a cover over them and steam them in the microwave to maybe about 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, depending on your microwave, of course. You could put them in a basket and in a pot and steam them. Whatever your preferred method for steaming is. And once they're steamed, you can throw them in the soup if you want to make a soup out of them or whatever. Opo squash, pretty cool.